Good afternoon, this is Jeff, Sewer Tech Northwest. We're at 425 Northwest 139th Avenue here in Portland. We're just around the corner here. That's the front of the house. And I describe everything as if you're standing out in the street facing the front of the home. We are at the front right corner of the house. The line exits out the right side of the home though, not the front. If that makes any sense. We're going to drop in here to a 4-inch ABS cleanout. We're going to check the overall condition, serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is running. We are zeroed out and off we go. And right out of the gate, like how clean that flow line was there. Basically no grease buildup to speak of. That joint we just went past, we just transitioned there to 4-inch 3034 PVC. We're going to take another look at that. And we've got a little bit of some level of standing water here, although we have a big chunk of toilet paper sitting in the line. So that right there may actually be the entire reason why any water is standing at all. That's why I always wait till the end when the line drains out, because that, with a bathtub running, you can look like you have a massive belly in the line just because of a piece of toilet paper sitting up in front, damming things up. But we will take a look at the transition joint. It settled a little bit. It looked like it's maybe a 1/4 inch or so out of whack, which generally speaking is not the kind of thing I recommend repairs on. I've done over 25,000 scopes, thousands of drain cleaning jobs, and that's a 1/4 inch offset joint and 4-inch plastic pipe takes a lot of doing on the homeowner side to ever manifest in a blockage. And by that I mean abusing the line, putting improper stuff down it. Alright, there's our main connection. My camera right now is upside down, that's why the water's overhead. It's like an old clay line we're connecting into out there. We're going to go locate the camera head here real quick, verify where the line terminates. And we'll pull back in here and take another look at everything. So far, pretty nice looking line, and it's an extremely clean sewer line. Alrighty, located the camera head successfully. Line terminates on Northwest 139th Avenue. As the line makes its way out to the road, again, as you face the front of the home from the street, line kind of hugs up against the right side property line, and where it actually hits the main lateral, you're actually sitting almost directly in front of the neighbor's driveway, but it looks like the line, once it gets near the curb, makes a turn, so it kind of crosses into the road at an angle. So I'm going to pull back here to around the curb and just verify the line's crossing the curb on this property. As new as this line is, I'm sure everything's up to snuff. Just a tiny little bit of water still trickling to the line here. I'm going to go kind of slow for a second until that drains out. Just to make sure what I'm looking at is not standing water. It's flowing. Now, if you're newer to home ownership, the way you can keep a line this clean, I think the dishwasher's discharging now. Yeah. To keep a line this clean, it really comes down to one major living habit, and that is not putting grease, fats, and oils down your kitchen sink drain. That's the number one thing that gunks pipes up over time. And once grease is there, it is there. It does not disintegrate or break down. It's not water soluble. Soap, Drano, none of that stuff touches it. And it makes a great deal of difference to how well your line functions, especially as to how well it handles abusive scenarios. Like when you have kids in the home that are wadding up their toilet paper the size of a softball, situations like that. It allows that, clean line allows debris to break loose much, much easier. That's the important, why you want to make sure your line stays clean. And sorry for the slow pullback here. I'm making sure that if we do hit standing water, I can see it. All right, there's where we make a turn. I'm going to go locate right here. I think this is where the line right around the curb is, or where we're at is the curb right now, where it makes that angled shot into the road. Yeah, so right now we are sitting right at the curb. So this first initial 38 feet of the line runs essentially dead straight from the clean out to the curb. Draw an imaginary line from the clean out straight out to towards the roadway. That's where you hit the curb. And then right here is where the line makes about a 45-degree angle turn and then shoots across the road. Basically, if you were to go, even if the marking wears off, someone has located this at some point. There's a Y mark or white marking out in the street there. Someone's located that. If you stand in the middle of the road, basically right in front of the neighbor's driveway, to the right of this home, that's essentially where the line hits the main lateral. In case you're curious where the line's at. Looks like we're going to give the line just a second to fully drain. We're kind of getting to that area here where we may have had a little bit of standing water in the line, so. There's a little tiny deformation there in the flow. It's very hard to see. If you don't look at sewers all day, that may not be ultra apparent. Right here, there's a little tiny hump in the flow line, or deformation. So we might see a tiny little bit of standing water leading up to that. But that deformation on its own is nothing concerning at all. Plastic is very much intact. Now what you might have here, there's another one right there. This might actually be a sleeved line. If you get an old 6-inch concrete line, for instance, and it still has good slope and grade, you can actually open the ground up and shove a 4-inch rigid pipe right down the middle of it in some cases. And where you get pipe joints, the old concrete joints where you have either excess pipe grout or some slight offset joints, the new line you put inside of it can deform over the top of those to some extent. My assumption is that's probably where those are coming from. And they're very minor, you can barely even see them, but in case you're wondering what that is. You know, sometimes it creates, 32nd of an inch, 16th of an inch of water that sits behind for a couple feet, but not something I would call a true belly. It's not really a gradation thing, it's more of a deformation. Another one there, yeah. Then these are so consistent, I think that's what we've got here. I think it's a sleeved line. It's exactly what I'd expect to see. If we have another one here about 3 feet back behind us, and you're not going to always get that at every joint, but those are so consistent. In concrete pipe, generally speaking, which is often what this era would have had out here, the pipe joints are usually every 3 feet. So if you notice right there, bam, 25 feet, you have another little tiny hump in the line. So on and so forth. And it looks like we skipped a joint on that one, and then there's another one right where I'd expect to see it again. 28 feet was the last one, 31 feet would be the next one. So that's what this is. Those are signs that this line was probably sleeved, possibly pipe bursted. It's hard to tell. The road is new enough. I don't see an obvious patch out in the street. Little tiny bit of standing water there too. It's very sporadic, and I mean, we're talking like 32nd of an inch in the places I even do see it. And for reference, after doing 25,000 sewer scopes, I don't even consider repairs on bellies until there's at least an inch of water for a minimum of 5 feet. And even at that point, realistically, I rarely see problems unless the line's being abused. And the only times I recommend a repair on even a belly like that is when it's right up against the home or underneath it. What you have here has basically no bearing on functionality whatsoever. And then a little bit of an offset, and it offset the direction you want it to. There's no lip to run into here. Even if there was, it wouldn't be one I'd recommend to fix on, because it's only maybe a quarter, I don't even know if it's a half of an inch out of whack. It's very minor. That I will put on the report though. You've got a quarter to maybe a half of an inch offset. That's all it is. The joint is clean. It shows no signs of being exposed to the ground. Flow is not being affected by that. The only way that could ever affect anything is you'd have to have something coming down the line that would be about 3 3/4 inches tall approximately. If you have anything that large going down the line, you're going to clog the line up regardless. So that's what it would take for that to even come into play. Got cast iron pipe going back into the home here. And it's very commonly left in the ground because cast iron from this era usually holds up for a very, very long time. Little bit of standing water here. But again, clean line, and I will at least notate this on the report. That belly dissipates off there at about 20, we'll call it 22 feet. It's close enough. You can see there's no buildup in the line here. I wouldn't expect to see any, not unless the line was being abused with wipes and things like that. And anytime I run backwards into this, it always exaggerates the look of it because it creates a wake in front of the camera heads, you can see, every time I push. When you let it settle down here, that water line at its worst point was maybe at 1/4 of an inch. It was right at the base of my camera lens. Oh, minor stuff. And about the only time that will ever come into play, something like this, is if you're putting a lot of multiple large balls of toilet paper. You'd have to be getting into scenarios that would likely clog a line that drained off perfectly. So that's why bellies like this I don't recommend repairs on, because what it takes to get them to blocking is what it would take to basically block up a perfectly graded sewer line. So from somewhere about 16 feet approximately to 22 feet, you're holding between a 1/16 and 1/4 inch, and the vast majority of that is at a 1/16. All the pipe is intact there. Very, very clean line end to end. We had one scrap of toilet paper in the whole line. And going back to the grease subject, as you notice when we advanced out there, something that a lot of folks don't realize. When you flush a toilet, it is very rare your solids will go from point A to point B in one toilet flush. It is very common and normal for debris to stop up partway down line and conveys the rest of the way under other toilet flushes, showers, and sinks draining, things like that. That's why you want to keep your line clean of grease buildup, so when that debris stops midway, it doesn't stop in a big pile of grease and get glued to the pipe bottom. That's where you end up getting your potential for buildup associated with grease. And grease also causes blockages to be much more likely to result in a backup rather than break loose on their own naturally. Blockages happen very frequently in lines without people even realizing it. Water builds up behind the blockage for a moment, combined with the disintegration of the toilet paper or solids in general, and things move on their way. So that's why you want to keep things clean. Nice looking line there. The imperfections in it are very subtle and minor. The standing water we're seeing out there in the 3034 is so minor it's not even going on my report, because it's not true real gradation issues. It's mostly because the line's deformed around some old pipe joints. In reality, you have good slope and grade overall throughout the line. Super clean, everything's intact. Line is functioning properly at this time. Both the offset joint and the minor belly going back into the home, none of those I'm recommending repairs on. They're far too minor in my opinion.